Okay, so everyone, welcome to the miso making. So I'm so glad that we can have this miso class again through Temple Kukuri. We missed it last year, so this year is Zoom. We just did the red miso making in person this year, first time in 2 years. That was nice. Now, today is the white miso. Before we start, I just want to get the beans cooking going. So, beans, 1 cup of beans, it should be soaked already. So we're going to drain the beans and put it in your pressure cooker. And I'm going to go drain. And you can lightly wash the beans. If you're soaking for 2 days, they can get a little bit beany smell. Well, I would rinse it quickly and put them in the pressure cooker. And you're gonna add the fresh water right above, maybe less than a ½ inch to 1 inch above the bean. So get a filtered water. I will show you. I'll be using 2 cameras so you can see well. Okay, so you will need it depends on how your pressure cooker works. If your pressure cooker is very good sealing, you probably need just about this much water. But just in case, I'm gonna see if it should be enough. And I'm gonna add just a little more. So I'm gonna make it to about 1 inch. Okay, that much. And seal your pressure cooker. And seal. And then pressure cooker for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna go put timer for 10 minutes and pressure cooker under 10 minutes. So you probably know how your pressure cooker works.
すいません。
はい。
How high the flame?
How high the water?
じゃなくて、温度。温度は強火
Pressure, high pressure.
High pressure. はいはい。
So high pressure for 10 minutes.
はい。
And you can let it go and then wait until the pressure release. So usually what we're looking for is the soft bean, so we can mash it very well. Now, while we're waiting for the beans, I'm going to explain. So I wrote down in the prep list that you had to discard all these beans that these are the discard rejects. So the beans can be colored like these guys, see? Cracked. So if you carefully observing the beans, you'll find those immature beans like this tiny one, and also sometimes the moldy one. So I noticed that the United States, the beans and grains are stored in somewhere for a long, long time, and then you don't really know how long. And then beans get kind of moldy or too dry. So I always soak long time, at least 2 days. And then making miso, this little process before the cooking is very critical because you are fermenting the beans, which means you can get mold. So you can avoid the mold. And this is one way. You have to discard the one it could potentially give you mold or bad batch. And you don't want to have a bad batch. So every time you do, I highly recommend to do this. It takes for a while, especially when we make a red miso, we make like 20, 30 cups, and then takes about 2 hours to do this work, but it's worth doing it. So this much came from about 2 cups of beans. So after soaking for 2 nights, and they should be very hydrated well, and you're going to cook it in high pressure. Now we are making a white Kyoto miso today, which means we are going to make a little bit different than the red miso or the regular white miso. I'm going to explain how it's different. One of the different thing is there are several differences I'm going to talk about later. So while we're waiting, and make sure that your water for the sterilizing the tools are going. So big pot. So big pot, lots of hot water. If you have a vodka, you don't need to do that. And 2 cups of filtered water boiling for later for beans, miso. Now I'm going to go through all the tools we need here. So you're going to need beans, salt, koji, and blender or masher, mason jar, 1 quart wide mouth. It's very easy to do. So small mouth, Noria-san, you have small mouth, no? Oh, wide mouth, okay. So small mouth is very difficult, but wide mouth is good, yeah. Okay, good. Or Ziploc. If you don't have a mason jar, you will need the 1 quart 2 Ziplocs. You will be making 2 of these. But I'm going to do 1 in jar, 1 in the plastic bag to just demonstrate. And then another plastic bag for the weight. So today I have a weight, old beans, azuki beans is going to be for my weight. You can use salt, other beans, little beans are better. Or any ceramic weight, it goes in here. You know, you can get the fermentation weight that you can buy. And vodka, if you have vodka, and then a little towel to clean. So first, and big bowls, 1 big bowl, 1 medium bowl probably. So I'm gonna put these guys. So make sure they are clean. Now we're gonna be sterilizing the tools. So let's wait for the water to boil. First, you're going to measure the ingredients. You already have a 1 cup bean, and you're going to need salt, which is very little considering compared to the other miso. I have have two different ones. This one is Celtic sea salt, but this is pretty coarse. And this one is a pink Himalayan salt. And this is very powdery salt. And in this case, this one, this white miso, smaller, fine or powdery salt is better because fermentation time is shorter than regular miso. If you have a coarse salt like this is pretty coarse. You're going to blend it with the beans later. Now you will need first 3 tablespoons and 2 tablespoons of salt. Anybody have a coarse salt? Everybody have a fine salt? Okay, good. Huh? Fine salt? Okay, okay. I'm going to use the fine salt. And open your koji. So you have 500 grams, about 1 pound. This is 1 pound and 4 ounces. So I usually use this koji. I'm going to talk more about koji. This is Cold Mountain. Later, I'm going to talk about how you can make your own. So keep this on the side. And salt, tablespoon and teaspoon. So you're going to need 3 tablespoons and 2 tablespoons. Make it flat. 1, 2, 3. 2 teaspoons. And put the salt away. Now, I put everything together here, but I want you to separate the salt. So get a little small plate or container. So 10 minutes after the pressure goes on. So 2 container. Salt. Take the teaspoon. So we put 3 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons salt here, but I want you to separate the 1 teaspoon in 1 teaspoon, another 1 teaspoon, and another. So this will be salt for the container. So you have 2 containers, so you're going to be needing 2. And this is going to be into the beans. So you want to separate them so you don't accidentally put all the salts in the beans. Especially this white miso needs little salt. So you don't want to put too much salt. Just making the salt smooth. If you have a clumpy salt, just massage them and then make it nice and smooth.
I'm sorry to bother you, but how much salt do you have to separate?
1 teaspoon, 1 teaspoon.
Separate.
Yeah. And you have 3 tablespoons here.
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So put your salt on the side. Now, my pressure cooker just got the pressure in, so I took 10 minutes from here. Now we're going to be sterilizing this. Tools, the jars, mainly jars, and also just to make sure sterilize this big. So we're going to sterilize these two. So you should have a hot water ready, I hope. Is everybody, ギャラリーにしてもらっていいですか？これいっぱいは2000ですね。Okay, so I'm gonna move the camera to hot water place. So I'm gonna show you the very correct, proper way of sterilizing, but I don't worry about the mold so much. If you do it right, even if you don't sterilize it, everything should be fine if your tools are pretty clean. But just for demonstration purpose and your own input for your own information, here is the hot water. During the winter time, you make sure this jar is not too cold. So you want to put a little bit warm water first, because mason jars could break. I always thought mason jar is so strong. So if your room is cold, I recommend to warm your jar just a little bit with the warm water. And make sure the hot water is boiling. And then have a bowl right next to the pot. And have a phone. And we're going to sterilize the lids too. So basic sterilization, hot water, 10 seconds at least, 10 to 20. So I'm going to put the jar. And just count for 10. And very, very careful, it's very hot. And when you take out the things, don't flip this up. So don't tilt this spot higher than your hands, because your hot water goes to your hands. So make sure you drip this way. And it's dry. And this is the difficult one to flip. So what I always do is just flip it here, and I think I need a foot pad. We take out. But first, just put just a little so that your water is not coming to your hands. And and the big pot, I am going to just scoop hot water. That, and then drain. Now, there. And if you keep the jar, this is drying. If you are using the vodka, you're going to be using the paper towel or the towel, soak it, and then just wipe everything. Oh, another tool that you need is a cheesecloth. This is kind of optional, but I like to have the cheesecloth. Just in case you get moldy, it's handy if the cheesecloth is on the top of the miso. Now, let's wait 4 more minutes. So what else do I need to do? Boil water, introduction. Okay, so change to the camera. Now, while we wait for the beans, I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff that you need to know. So you can have a seat, maybe you can have a tea. Last time when we did this Zoom class, we did the kimchi at the same time. So we were going back and forth on kimchi and miso. But today it's a little bit laid back. So we're going to talk about miso and all the ingredients. Okay, so first, I showed you the salt, 2 different kinds of salt. So what salt do you want to use? There are many different kinds now, especially you can get from the stores. And I have these 2. This is the Celtic salt, sea salt. Himalayan pink salt, rock salt. So basically there are 2 types of salt from the sea, from the rock. So which one is best? Which one is better? I don't know. So you have to choose. There are advantages and disadvantages for both. Now the sea salt, very traditional, especially this Celtic sea salt is traditionally made sun dried. Most of the commercial ones, the cheap one, sea salt, are not sun dried. It's usually machine dried, and then all the minerals should be there, could be gone. So this has lots of minerals, and disadvantage of the sea salt is that ocean is so polluted right now. So you can't really tell which is the good salt, clean salt or not clean salt. So that's something that you need to consider too. Rock salt is also actually a sea salt, but it's ancient sea salt, which was the salt deposit in the land, which is a rock. So it's an ancient sea salt, which used to be in the sea. So it's much cleaner, I believe, because it's an ancient sea. It's not a modern time sea, which is polluted. So that way I can say probably this is cleaner. But so 10 minutes, so I'm going to let the pressure just leave it there. But it could be costly. The sea salt can be costly, especially this one, Celtic sea salt, traditionally made one, is costly. But it's worth getting the good salt because our body needs good salt, not the table salt or cheap salt. Then you get all the problems that people are talking about from consuming too much salt. But if you're getting really good salt, especially fermented salt, it will benefit you, but not harm you. Now, go back to miso. So we are making the white miso. Last year, we were making regular white miso, but today we are making Kyoto style miso. We call this Saikyo-fu miso. So what's the difference? Saikyo-fu, I say Saikyo-fu means Saikyo style, Kyoto style. It's sweeter than the regular white miso. So think about the ratio of the salt and koji. Usually when we're making the regular white miso, you use half of this koji. We're using twice as much and half of the salt as usual, white miso. So koji and the salt ratio determines white and regular white, Kyoto white, and red miso. Now, the more koji you use, less salt you need and less time you need to ferment. So Kyoto style white miso have 2 weeks fermentation time, which is very short, sometimes 1 week. So we're going to take 2 weeks because it's winter time and cold. If your room is warm all the time, you might just have 1 to 1.5 week fermentation. And red miso, on the other hand, if you use this much koji, you can make about this much red miso, which is like 4 quarts miso, and 3 or 4 times as salt. And fermentation time is at least 6 months. When I make a red miso, I usually go to 1 year to 3 years. Now, we are using chickpea beans today because I love chickpea beans for white miso. Red miso, I use soybeans. But here's the thing, in Japan, almost all the miso are made with soy beans, not chickpea at all. But koji has different kinds of koji. Today we are using rice koji. In the southern part of Japan, uses the barley koji to make a white miso, and goes to the north side of Japan, they use mame koji, which is the bean koji. And in the middle, like in the Nagoya, Aichi, they use the bean koji. So the taste of the miso are so influenced by what kind of koji you use. So the quality of koji is very important to consider. In the United States, this cold mountain koji was very available, and then it was easy to get in the nearby Asian stores. And now online, Amazon, everywhere you can buy it. And also koji is so popular now, you can get online organic brown rice koji, but I have never seen organic white rice koji. I didn't list it in the list for the white miso making because you will need white koji, rice koji, not the brown rice koji. Brown rice koji takes much more time unless you want to powder it. So this cold mountain koji, the granule size is kind of a medium. So it's not a whole rice, but I would say it's a little bit too big for this 2 weeks fermentation. So I'm going to blend this first. So you're going to take this to the blender and you're going to blend it if you have the cold mountain koji or whole rice koji. But you don't want to powder it. You just want maybe half or 1/3 size of what you have right now. So just like a pulse, I'm going to show you. Blender. You're going to use all this 500 grams. So one more time, don't powder it, just small, a little smaller than that. And if you're using the coarse salt, this is the time you can put it in there. We blend it together. Okay, it's gonna be loud. Okay, I'm gonna do a pulse. A little smaller. I'm gonna just slow and slow speed. So I use the slow speed so it doesn't look too powdery. So right now about this much. The bottom gets a little bit more powdery, so stir it and do it more. I'm gonna go to a medium. So about in the middle of powdering and small. So this is only for the Kyoto style. You don't have to do this for the regular miso. And just keep the koji on the side. So right now it's about this size. You probably need to blend it at the very end of fermentation to make it smooth, because that's one of the characteristic of the Kyoto style, smooth miso. And now, let's see if everybody, okay. So I'm gonna let the pressure go so I can work on the image. Fine. So the koji, we are using the pre-made koji. You can make your own koji, but you have to buy the starter, which is the powder. And I've been researching the koji. The rice koji is fairly easy to make if you have an experience of fermentation. But I wanted to make koji culture itself by myself. So I didn't want to buy a regular koji starter, because I've been studying the koji, even the koji starter made in the factories are not really healthy. They sometimes have to feed some of the meat particles or something. They have to do weird things to keep the culture alive or grow or raise the culture. So I thought, why not make your own? Because in olden days, everybody did it. But the reason that the koji starter, so the reason that the koji starter showed up about Meiji, Taisho, Meiji, Showa era, which is not long time ago, maybe like 60, 70 years ago, because the natural culture, natural koji yeast were not stable. So in olden times, they just make a ball of cooked soybeans, like a ball together, and hang it from the ceiling, and then just let it mold. So that's how the koji started. So that's the most natural way of making it. But the natural way is always not stable because it depends on the weather, depends on the climate, every year is so different. So that's how the scientist comes up with the starter, which is more stable and easy to make. So I tried my own koji starter, which I just steamed the soybean and then let it be. And then wait until the green mold can come. But it was very hard just to get the green one because there's a white one, black one, red one, and green one all together comes. So it wasn't easy, so I have to experiment more. Now, talking about mold, so one of the reasons that not so many people are making their own miso or doing the fermentation food, fermented foods were because of they don't have emotional insurance because they haven't done it, so they might screw up. So once it screws up, you can get a tummy ache if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, you could get killed. So you really have to be careful. You need to know that your capacity of the food cooking and also fermentation process. So what I'm doing is giving you emotional assurance. It's okay, and the mold can come, but it's not harmful usually if you're doing it right. The first mold or first thing you see usually is a white thing. And when you're doing the fermentation process, even the kimchi or miso, the first thing is the mold is always comes, if this is the miso, right at the top where the miso touches the air. And that white thing is not actually a mold, it's usually yeast. So which is not harmful, but it can taste not pleasant if it's a lot. And you can take it off. And there is a red mold, green mold, black mold. Those are, it comes after the white one. And those are, you have to watch out. If you are beginners, I wouldn't, you don't want to take a risk. So if you see any red one, bright red, black one, oops. That's my husband came home. You're not in there. Those are the ones that you want to watch. You might just toss the batch and then don't take a risk. But it's very rare to happen if you're doing it right. Okay, I'm gonna let the pressure go. And check your bean. If the pressure is gone, you can check the softness of the beans. So another thing that the Kyoto style miso, extra processed, the Kyoto, everything in Kyoto is very graceful and very nice and fancy. So we're making this miso fancier than regular white miso by taking skin off the beans. That's a very, it's a lot of work, but we're gonna do it as much as we can. Now, the pressure's gone, I'm gonna open it. The first thing you need to do is, how soft are the beans? Check the beans. Okay, you might wanna use, you might need a little strainer or like this, or a small strainer. So you just scoop it up. So just take a couple big ones to check. I can always see they are soft enough because they're already cracked, right? Now, pinky and thumb squish very easily. That's the how soft that you want. Now, these guys have a pretty thick skin. We're trying to get the skin out. So what you're going to do is you're going to stir. Before that, would you check your hot water that you boiled for 2 cups of filtered water and let it cool down? It should be boiled already, right? So let it cool down. And the beans. So just not really pushing, but stir it very lightly. Don't push it, mash it yet. And then see if the bean skin's coming off and then float on top. When it's cooked really soft, usually they come up. So here, take a little bowl. And be careful, it might be hot. So skin. So this skin. You don't have to take them all, just as much as you can easily. And then, if this is the soybean, they can come off easier before they cook. So after soaking, they can take it off. A little more vigorously. And take off the skin. Take your time. This is nice, kind of a meditative time. Always when we do some traditional cooking, there is a meditative time. In other words, tedious work, but I like it. Especially when you're doing it with other people in person. It's very nice time to talk about each other's life. I think that's how women get connected in the village, making miso or food together. The handwork are great time to talk and then connect. So good thing we're making just 1 cup. Otherwise, it will take a long time to take the skin off. And if you choose to leave the skin, that's okay. You know, some people says, oh, I want more fiber. You will get plenty of fiber from the beans, but it's too much to do. You don't have to. It's just the luxury part of the Kyoto style miso. So too bad they don't float. Not much. Okay, a couple more and then we can go forward. Okay, how's everybody doing? Okay, so we're gonna put the beans back into the blender. So let's transfer the koji in a different container. Don't blend beans and koji together right now because beans are too hot. You don't want to put a too hot water into koji. So this koji usually tolerate the heat up to 60 degrees, which is what in Fahrenheit? I don't remember, but I'm gonna let you know later. So you can do by hands mashing. In 1 cup is easy to do mashing by hands. Otherwise, you can do a blender and make it easy. When we make a red miso, we usually do by hands. It's fun handwork for women, men. Just keep taking the skin off. So the reason that I use chickpea instead of soy for white miso is because the fermentation time is shorter for red miso. And soys are a great protein source if they are fermented properly. And if they are not fermented, it's very hard for your digestive system. And the certain chemicals in the soy, the scientists says that it could be a cancer causing. And they also says that 3 years fermentation neutralizes that chemical. And nobody really ferments the soy for 3 years, especially the store-bought ones. So I make my own and then ferments for a long time if I use soy. And if it's the white miso, you don't have to, you can use the chickpea and then don't worry about it fermenting too long. And it's tastier, I think. Hiyoko mame, the chickpeas are very tasty for the white miso. Now, so we're gonna take it to the blender and you're gonna take this cooking water too. But you're not gonna put this all in here because you have to adjust how much water you need. Okay? Please see my So take it to the blender. Actually, towel in the blender here. It's gonna be loud. Since I have only 1 cup, which is just enough to get my Vitamix going, and probably work. Now you're gonna put this cooking juice. Let's say about 1.5 cup. Let's say 1/2 cup first. And blend it. So you're gonna make it very, very smooth. Okay, so I will probably need another 1/4 cup. And blend. And just add a little by little. I'm going to do another 1/4 cup, just enough to blend. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then they're nice and smooth. I am going to second. Okay, I'm going to, so I have very nice and smooth, and then not too watery. I'm going to blend it a little bit more to get very smooth. Pretty smooth. Now, add 3 tablespoons of salt. And blend. Okay. Now, I'm going to put 1/2 of the 1/4 cup, the 1/8 of the cup of water, which is about 2 tablespoons. Okay. So nice and smooth. Now bring the big bowl. Spatula. And transfer the bean paste, salt bean paste. A large bowl. Keep the bean cooked bean juice and then let it cool because we're gonna add it later to adjust. So after we put koji, the koji is gonna suck all the water and then we will need a little bit more juice. And some of the white miso, sometimes with the Kyoto miso, they don't use the cooked juice. They sometimes use hot water cooled down. So the miso color gets much whiter. But I don't want to waste this good umami in this juice and nutrition. So I will keep it. Now we're gonna use the bare hands, so go wash your hands, just make sure. You have a clean hands. Yeah. So the temperature you need is not too hot, and you put your fingers right in the mountain of the bean, and if you can stay there comfortably for 10 seconds, good temperature to work. If it's too hot, you just stir it and then wait until it cools down. So this is a good temperature. So you are going to add koji. Oh, this koji goes in. And serve. Consistency that we're looking for is like a bit so softer than cookie dough. So right now, I just stir everything and I have a consistency of cookie dough. So dry. So now you're going to use the hand. It's very important to use your hand, or when I make miso, I let my family member stick their hands in it. So all the medicines are here. My medicines are here. Your medicines are on your hands. And my family member have their own on their hands. And they goes to miso, and fermentation is a magic. So they're gonna turn this microorganism into your medicine. So this is pretty dry. So now I'm gonna add this water, stick in hands. It's warm, that's good. And
Me, did you already mix with the koji?
yes.
Oh, okay.
And quarter cup and mix. Now this koji takes for a while to get all the water saturated with this water. So as you work, it gets drier and drier. So this is the nice, feeling good work, and still a little bit dry. So I'm gonna add another quarter cup. So I added half cup total right now. And it feels like it's consistency. So right now, if I make a ball, have a little shape, but no crack, and but a little bit more softer because still the koji is sucking the water. Okay, another quarter cup. So miso tastes better when more hands goes in there. So I had a really very interesting experience with the miso making in Japan. My friend was giving a miso workshop every month for different people. And then so keep stirring. And then when I was there, she had a miso opening day. She had 7 or 8 barrels of big barrels of miso, which each of the barrels were made by different groups of people. And I got to do a tasting. So she put the barrels in the order of the timeline. So from the left was the older one, and then to the right is the newer one. So we kind of assume that the oldest one is going to be more koku and umami and much tastier. But we found out that the one of them in the middle was tastier, and then almost everybody in the rooms agreed that the tastier one was the same. So we were puzzled because we couldn't figure out why it's the oldest one doesn't taste the best. So we were just watching, and then we just kind of came to this conclusion. The barrel had the names of the people who made the miso. And then we noticed that the barrel that it was tastiest had the most people, number of people were in there. So there was like more than 10 people were in that list. And then other barrels were only 3 to 4 people. So we said, well, maybe because so many people touched the miso, it really made a difference. Okay, so let's check it now. Make a ball and drop. So if it flattens just like this, still a little bit hard. It was halfway flat. So I would say I will put like 2 tablespoons more of water. Probably the last one. So we believed fermentation process becomes more magical with more people, more hands, more different microorganisms. Okay, so now let this miso. So right now I have the bowl. And so it was half, and it doesn't crack. That means it's soft enough and it flattens, it's soft enough. I'm gonna let this sit. It might get harder, drier, while I let my container ready. So get your mason jar and Ziploc, or 2 mason jars, or 2 Ziplocs. Mason jar should be completely dry. If not, I would dry with a paper towel or towel. The lid has to be completely dry. So your enemy is water and your friend is water. So control of water is a control of mold. Now, I'm going to start with the mason jar one. Let's feel the miso. I see it's pretty good. It could go softer, but I would say this is nice. Now, make it nice and flat. Yeah, this is getting a little bit drier too. I'm going to add just a little, 2 more tablespoons. So I added another 2 tablespoons, made it soft. So how hard you need to do is an experience. If it's too much water, it gets a little bit less salty. If it's too less water, it gets salty. And if it's too much water, it gets away. Too less water, too salty, and too much water, less saltier. So you need to find the right place. Now you're going to make this into half. So half goes to 1 mason jar, another half goes to another mason jar. Here I am doing 1/2 to mason jar, 1/2 to the Ziploc method for demonstration purpose. Now the salt. So you have 1 teaspoon salt here. Let's see if everybody's ready. Okay, everybody good? Now we're gonna be putting just a tiny bit of salt into the bottom. So you don't have to really worry about the bottom mold, but you have to worry about the mold on the top surface. So you're going to use more salt on the top. So I left this much salt for the top. Now you're gonna make a small ball. So your goal is to get all the air out of the miso. So you are pushing the air out, making a nice little ball. Yeah, about this size. And you're gonna drop it. It's easy to have a big batch and a big container, but you are just gonna be aim it, drop. Yeah. And then slightly flatten it and keep going with balls and drop. This is a fun work with if you have kids. This is a great part of the work that kids can do. And then if it's a big one, we put on the big container on the floor, and then we really throw it. And this one you cannot do it, so just aim it and drop, and then push. So push and then air out. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. And you don't want to fill the container too much. It should be about 60 to 70% full at the end. You can put a weight. The container that you choose for the fermentation, I prefer no plastic, because you never know what chemical can reach out. Especially fermentation, there is an acid comes in through the food, which is not good with the plastic. And you don't want any chemicals in your food. So glass or ceramic is great, especially for the longer fermentation. But lately, most of the miso making in Japan are made in Ziplocs. It's so easy. I will show you. If it's a traditional way with the ceramic or glass, you will need a weight. But Ziploc method, you don't need anything. So it's much easier. But this white miso is only 1 week to 2 weeks, so I say Ziploc is okay. Now I have about 70%, 80% full, and just a tiny air is okay, but if you need, you're gonna flatten. So you need very flat on the top. So you're going to be wiping all this mouse clean. So this is where the mold starts to form. So from here to here, very clean. So use the wet towel first, clean it, and then use the dry towel and dry outside too. And dry. And if you have vodka or shochu, you're going to be dipping the clean towel there and then wipe the mouth to the very top of the miso. And the rest of the salt is going to go on the very top very evenly, especially where at the very outside. You're going to sprinkle the salt, especially where the glass is touching the bean. And sprinkle in the middle as even as you can. So we're going to go a little bit over time. I hope everybody can stay. And I put cheesecloth or any cotton cloth. If the mold comes, usually comes right on here and then you can just remove it so easy. That's one of the reasons that I use this. And I soak, you're gonna shake it so all the strings are off. And I soak this with the vodka. Extra careful. And put it right over it. And make sure it goes to right at the glass touches the miso bean paste. So it kind of seals. I used to use sake kasu right on here, especially with the red miso. And then sake kasu works really great, preventing the mold. And also at the end of the fermentation, the sake kasu is sucking the tamari, the juice of the miso. And I usually ferment the veggie in that sake kasu. And it's the most delicious fermented veggie. But today, sake kasu, sometimes you cannot get it easy. We're using the cheesecloth soaked with vodka or shochu. And you need a weight. So controlling water, here comes. You will need water coming up above the bean paste within 3 or 4 days. In order to get the water from the beans, you need a weight. Usually twice as much as what you have, but in the mason jar, you can't really put that much weight. So what I do is use a Ziploc, little Ziploc. It flattens, or I would probably put 2 little Ziploc or 1 big Ziploc inside the jar. And you can put salt or beans in the back. just little by little, so it kind of evenly goes to the edge of the glass too. And you want the beans a little more than the top of the jar, mouth of the jar. So you put it right. So I have like this. So it's going all the way to the edge. And you push the beans to the edge from inside. So the beans goes in gradually, and then you add a little bit more. You're not going to put the lid on. You need weight as much as you can. So what you need is just above the mouth line and close the bag. And you're going to put the lid right there. And you might be able to push down. So actually, you will need the lid on and push down, so the weight goes in. And if you can close just a little, that'll be perfect. You don't want to seal it, but you just want the weight goes in. If it doesn't close like I do, if you perfectly put the beans, you can put the lid on and still the weight goes in. If you cannot do it, I would put like this and put a weight stone on top, like this, and cover it. With a cloth or Ziploc. And rubber band around. Now the bean starts to give a gas. And that gas is a prevention for it prevents the mold, so you need the gas. But when the gas is in there and then trapped, so you want to keep the air out so it doesn't explode. So now you have like this. And keep it in a dark place and hold this in the room. If the room is too warm, it will get a little bit too fast fermentation, which means a little bit sourness comes in. So about 60, between 60, ideally probably 60 to 70, 65 to 70 temperature, in the room temperature. And you have to observe it every day because the water will come up. So usually water comes up from here, and then you're going to start to see it goes above the miso. That's what you want. Within 3 days, you will probably see it. If you don't see it within 3 or 4 days, your weight is not enough. So you might want to add more beans after 3 or 4 days if you don't see the water covering the bean paste. If the water is above here, you might want to take half of the weight. So if the water is above the bean within 3 or 4 days, I would take my stone off and then keep the rest. And see if the water is still above this miso line. If I take the weight off, the stone off, and the water goes too low and it's not covering the miso, I have to put this back. And you always need a secondary container just to make sure, because sometimes the juice, which is tamari, goes out of the jar. So if that happens, you need to put the weight off, maybe half of the weight off, but still the water is above. So ideally, the water is above, maybe ½ inch above, quarter inch to ½ inch above the miso paste. If it goes too over, it will spill. So you need to observe it every day. And then I will email you every 3 days to check in. Now I'm gonna do another method. You keep doing your dango, the balls, and then do the second jar. So second one method is Ziploc, which is very easy. I'm gonna do a double Ziploc, 1 gallon. Freezer bag is probably thicker, so it's good. So I'll put the one inside of the other. And lift the mouth out so it freestands. And same thing, make balls. I'm gonna make a big ball because this is the easy one. And then drop it. And and drop. This is easy because the mouth is big. Okay, this one, you're going to be putting it into the very, very edge of the so right here. You push it towards the triangle bottom corner. Push, push, push. And push, push, push. And wash your hands. And the first bag. Close it halfway. And then push. The air is all out, so you don't want to trap the air at all. So however you do, you just keep getting the air out. So the first bag is completely air. Ah, ごめんね。お塩忘れてた。I forgot the salt. So you're gonna put the salt on the top? Sorry. So all salt on the top. Sprinkle as even as you can.
Sumimasen. May I ask a question?
Yes.
When did you use the kombu?
Oh, kombu is optional.
Oh, optional.
So usually when I make the white miso, I put the kombu right in this.
Between.
Yeah, inside, in the middle. Yeah, so it buries it.
Oh, how about put it at the top? No.
No, not. It needs to be buried. Otherwise, it get moldy.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about
So
that.
in
I
the middle.
forgot to mention. I figured this is a Kyoto style, and then we're gonna use a lot of kombu dashi to make a soup. So I didn't put the kombu down. But you can, you can just bury it. If your weight is, you can take the weight off, and then just bury it, and then put the berry inside, and then put the weight back.
I see. Okay.
So if you want to do that, you can put the kombu right in the inside.
Okay. Hi. Arigato.
So I took out the first bag. So you're going to be closing halfway and then push the air out. And close. So try not to have air, but if you cannot do it completely, it's okay. So you're gonna put this, so fold the first one and put it in the second one. And again, close halfway and then get the air out. So if you did the Ziploc method, it's like this right now, right? So you're going to be putting this in a flat. I would also get a secondary container or a large plate like this. Place it flat. Now, Ziploc, you have to flip like this every day. Flip it every day. Flip it every day. Yeah, so the juice goes everywhere. And make sure all the air is out every day. Okay. So you can just do like this every day, once a day. Okay, so you have the jar, you have the Ziploc one. Now, if you start to see any mold anywhere, so the likely to have air bubbles, these are the places that the white yeast comes first. So if that happens, if it's just a little one, you just mix it like this. If it's a big one, you open it and then take it out. If it's the black or red, bright red, toss the whole batch out, but it won't happen usually if you can just every day like this, and then not too, the room temperature is not too warm. It should be fine. You don't have to worry. And this jar, if you see a yeast, you're going to see it right here first. But if the water is above, you should be fine. But when you open it, you might see it in the middle. And if that happens, if it's the white yeast or mold, quote unquote, you can take them out and then should be fine. And if it's a bright red or black one, I would just toss the whole thing. But this recipe, you cannot ferment more than 3 weeks because there is not much salt. So 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks. So I will email you, and every 3 days, first 3 days, 1 week, and 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, you're gonna should be done. So you're gonna take everything out, and you can use it as it is, but I will blend it. So all the koji is blended. Or when you use it for the miso soup, you can strain it out, whichever you like. Now I will, so this white miso are great for other recipes. My favorite one is a dip. So easy to use as a dip because it's not that salty. You can just dip veggies into this white miso and then just nibble. It's a great snack. And another one, the dip, but I like is avocado dip. I put half avocado, half white miso, blend it, and it's a great chip dips. And also hummus. It's a white miso hummus. I usually cook when I make the white miso, I cook with the extra chickpea. So I make a bunch of hummus. And I usually use, let's see, 1 cup of hummus, and then I would probably use 1/4 cup of white miso in the hummus. And then garlic, cumin, lemon juice. And the white miso, when the white miso is really well fermented, it can become a preservative, natural preservative for the hummus. And when I make a hummus, I usually use the white miso, or I add another fermented juice and use it as a preservative. So my hummus is good for a month, usually. It doesn't get bad so fast. And also when I make squash soup, creamy squash soup, I put just a tiny bit of white miso to give a koku and umami. So for the creamy soup, you don't want to put a lot because it's going to turn into miso soup. You don't want the miso soup. You want the cream, milky cream soup. So you just need just 1 teaspoon or so for 3 to 4 serving. And then it gives a nice koku and umami. Another thing, the very unique use that I saw recently was ice cream. It was a white miso ginger ice cream. It was a local non-dairy ice cream place. And you can't really taste the white miso. I think it's just a tiny, tiny secret ingredients to give a koku and umami to the ice cream. So that's another very unique one that you can try on. And so let's see, how's everybody doing? Any questions? Let me see, did I talk about everything? Let me check. Oh, and then the next class is the Kyoto style New Year soup, zoni, and making it with this white miso. And I'm from southern part of Japan. And then my zoni, the soup stock, is usually dried shrimp and chicken and kombu, dashi. So I was not interested in white miso zoni because that wasn't really attractive for me. But when I lived in Kyoto, and then last time when I went to Kyoto, I got a recipe from the high-end restaurant chef. And then I bought a white Kyoto miso, and then I took it home, and then I made the Kyoto style white miso zoni for the first time. It was delicious. So it was really worth making it. I really liked it. So that's why I thought, okay, let's make this specific white miso, and then I make a zoni. And zoni is all about, Kyoto style food is all about kombu dashi. So if you want to join the next class, I would get rishiri kombu. That's the best kombu for the soup. But if you have other kombu, you can use other one, but the best one is rishiri kombu. That's a Hokkaido kombu. And then when I send the preparation list, I will put the link where you can buy. Any questions? Is everybody doing okay? We're gonna unmute everybody now so you can talk and then share.
I enjoy making.
Good.
Yeah, I taste a little bit. It's already sweet and a nice smell. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this white miso only lasts for a week or 2 weeks after the fermentation. It's very short-lived. That's why it's very valuable too.
Not so much.
So after the fermentation, I would use it right away, or I would freeze them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a small pack.
It will last good. The quality of the taste changes so fast after a week or so. It's not bad.
Even fresh miso too. I brought it.
Yeah.
The first day was really good.
It starts to taste like very yeasty after a week. So it's not good for your, it's not bad for your body, but the taste quality just declines so fast. So that's one of the reasons the real Kyoto Saikyo miso, you can't really buy it anywhere. Only in Kyoto. And also it's a trademark name. Saikyo miso is a trademark. Only in specific store in Kyoto can make Saikyo miso with a specific recipe. So I cannot call this Saikyo miso. I can only say Saikyo style miso. Just like Hacho miso. Hacho miso has to be made in Hacho town in Aichi. Otherwise, you cannot call it Hacho miso. You can call it Mame miso. So it's just like a champagne.
Is the Saikyo miso also made from chickpea?
No, soybean.
Soybean, okay.
Yeah,
So
soybean.
must have a different taste.
I think so. But I would assume this tastes better because I love chickpea.
Good.
And then it goes well with other recipes. Yeah.
So how many days do I have to wait? I think
2 weeks.
you already told me.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 1.5 to 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I will email you when it's when you need to check and then when you need to finish up.
So today is 13th, 27th.
Yeah.
Around.
So it should be ready by the time that the next class starts, which is the January 2nd, the New Year. So that's when you can open. Maybe you can open in a New Year day to celebrate.
Good for 1 week, right?
Yeah, good for 1 week in the refrigerator, or 1 month, 2 months in the freezer. And basically, this fermentation, oh, here's a question for you. What's the difference of fermentation and rotting. Same process,
Ah,
right? It's the same process.
It's
What
hard.
makes it different? So think about it, fermentation and rotting. Why do you call this one fermentation, but this one is rotting and bad?
sourness.
Sourness, but from the strength of the sourness?
Yeah. If it's rotten, it's gonna be sour.
That's a good one. But you have a very, very
No?
sour kimchi, but it's not rotting.
Ah,
Or the vinegar is very sour, but not rotten.
oh. Hmm.
Different bacteria.
So this answer will tell you what to do or what, when it's rotting, when it's fermenting, when you can eat or when you can't eat. So the fermentation and the rotting is exactly the same process. It's the breakdown of the protein, or the microorganism is working to break down the protein or the cells. But fermentation is a beneficial microorganism to our body. Rotting, on the other hand, is harmful microorganism to our body when you eat. So that's one of the biggest difference. So when you're thinking that you're fermenting beans, but when you get a tummy ache after you eat, what's happening? So it's a rotting instead of the fermentation. So something went wrong. So the mold came and then something went wrong. So you have to determine if this is good to eat, this is not good to eat. And you need 5 senses to determine it. So sourness is one thing that you have to know. Sometimes the quality of the sourness, the present sourness is a fermentation, but very unpleasant, very sharp, like, that's not, when the milk get very bad, have you ever smelled that smell? It's like, oh, your whole body tenses up. That's a bad sound.
Between
No, you can pleasant or not pleasant. And also the eyes, you can see, if there is a black color, red color, white color.
maybe hand smooth. Koji.
And also the taste. So the taste goes to the very end because you don't want to even taste it when it smells really, really bad. So you know everything that you need to know if it's fermentation or rotting. Trust your 5 senses, or maybe 6 senses. And then like 3 days, 1 week, and then 2 weeks timeline. And then if you are in doubt, you see some red or white, and then you can't tell if this is a mold or good or
Red
bad.
and black rice instead.
Picture
White is
send it to me, and we can determine.
so you're being a white.
Yeah. Any question?
The beans,
Yes.
you put it on the top.
Wait, yes.
Any bean is okay.
Any beans okay. I recommend
Okay.
smaller beans.
Chickpea.
So they can really go in down. So smaller beans are great, and salt are great.
Oh,
And-
salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, salt is good too. And then sometimes I used water too, double Ziploc water, if it's a short fermentation. Yeah. And then make sure it doesn't.
Okay.
So going back to the fermentation, so when you know so miso is basically koji is breaking down the protein of the beans, which means you can use any beans that it has protein, which is almost all the beans have protein. So we use the chickpea.
Oh,
you can use azuki bean. I tried the azuki bean miso. That's great for dip, not for miso soup. It kind of confuses our brain. Japanese brain confuses the azuki bean miso. It has to be sweet, but it's salty. But good for dip. And you can use white bean. And very unique one is you can use quinoa. Quinoa has lots of protein, and then you can use quinoa.
Interesting.
And also you can play with the koji, right? Rice, barley, soy, and you can probably use soy for koji. So the options are unlimited, but probably we are so used to the soybean miso or chickpea miso. Those are my favorite ones. Yeah. Any more questions?
So, Sawa-san, do I have to put on top of this lid? Actually I could close down
Okay.
tightly.
If you can close it, you might not need to, but you have to make sure that the lid is really pushing the beans. And then check every day because the water might overflow if the lid is completely closed.
Oh, okay. So you mean that the water is coming up and then the lid is coming a little loose?
Yeah.
I have to drain the water?
No, you have to keep it.
Keep the water.
Yeah, you have to keep the water.
What should I do?
So keep the lid on until the water comes up. And if you see, so you need to observe it every day. So if water comes up towards the lid and then it feels like it will explode, you might need to loosen the lid.
That's all right. Okay.
And then you might need to take off some of the weight. But the water, tamari comes up, and that you need to keep it to prevent the mold. So the tamari has to be over the miso all the time. It doesn't have to be really full.
Okay.
You have to kind of adjust the weight to have right amount of water in there.
How about if you don't have a water coming up?
Now you have to put more weight. So after 3
weight.
or 4 days, yeah, if you don't see water, you need to put more weight.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is all about weight control, water control. So if you have just right amount of weight, you don't have to worry about it. We have to worry about it because it's a mason jar. If it's the big container, we usually put the Otosibuta and then stones, heavy enough. Usually if this is 2 pounds, you need 4 pounds usually of weight. And then you don't have to worry about it. But this, you couldn't put enough in the jar. So you have to kind of play around with the weight.
Okay.
Yeah. So this way usually enough, and then you probably
because
see.
I made a mistake too.
Say that again?
Okay. Because I made a mistake. Yeah, I made a mistake today.
Yeah.
I used a square container.
Oh, I
So
see.
I'm afraid that the weight, the evenly. The corner
is the miso full?
is very hard.
Looks like it's full, huh?
Almost full.
Yeah, you need to take that off.
I put the sakekatsu on the top.
Yeah, you have to have 80%, 70 to 80% in the jar. You cannot fill it. Otherwise, the water is gonna probably overflow easy, and then you cannot put enough weight. Maybe you can take off some of them and put it in Ziploc or in a little smaller glass jar.
Oh,
That'll be safer.
I put the sake kasu on the top.
Okay.
So it's like 80%, I think.
Oh, 80%.
It's miso is right here. Yeah. Miso
So-
is right here.
Okay, if there is enough space, it might work. But you do need to put more weight, and then you need to put probably more heavier books over the bean. That's what I usually do.
Okay.
So if I cannot fit the bean weight in the jar, I put the bean enough that it's mounted, and then I put the heavy book over it.
Yeah.
But you
Okay.
just need to make sure they don't tip over, and you have to make sure you have to have a secondary container.
Okay.
Because water will overflow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
try. Okay, so it's almost 9. Any question? Yeah. So the rest,
Do you usually put the weight on the miso when you make the regular miso?
always, yeah.
Always.
Always you have to
Oh.
put, otherwise it will get mold on the top. Because you do
Ah,
need the water
mold.
come up.
Oh, I see.
Just like
Because-
just like any other fermentation, fermented veggies, tsukemono too. You know, you need the water come up above the veggie.
Oh, I see. I see.
That's the control of the mold.
Oh, because I took the different class of miso making class. They never put the weight.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
How long did they ferment?
So maybe it's regular miso. It's I think 3 months.
Oh,
I think.
that's interesting. You
Yeah.
didn't get molded?
Huh?
You didn't get
Yeah,
moldy on the top?
there is a moldy a little bit, but I take it off. You know, I took out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. If you can take it off and then not worry about it, that's fine. But if you have the tamari comes up, you can control the mold easier.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. So just like umeboshi making too.
Yeah, umeboshi, I put the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so anytime you have questions, yeah, hi Noria-san.
Alpha. Do you need a cloth for the plastic bag method?
You don't need anything for the plastic.
Just put the cloth in here. Maybe I can take it out.
That's fine. You can keep it in there, but you don't need it.
Yeah. Okay, I can keep it in there too?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Had a great time.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. And then sorry we ran over time, but it was great to see you guys and working with Miso. So I will email you and then keep your eyes. When you put the miso in a dark place, some people forget about it. So don't forget about watching it and then putting love to it every day. And then they will be fine.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a good night and then happy Christmas and New Year.
ありがとう。
Bye.
Thank you.